Today, we're tackling a question that many couples face. How do you make that all-important formal introduction, either at the ceremony or the reception, if you are not taking your spouse's last name? This is very common in Canada, the UK, and parts of Europe because they're not changing their last names. They're opting to have separate last names. This trend is growing over here too. But how do you navigate this tradition without making it a focal point for your big day? Join us today as we explore creative and heartfelt ways to introduce yourself as a married couple while keeping the spotlight on your love story. By the end of this edition, you'll have plenty of unique ideas to make your wedding day unforgettable and truly personalized to you and your partner. Get ready to celebrate your union in style.
Listen now and discover 6 creative ways to celebrate your marriage without changing your last name. These are wedding insider secrets for a stress-free, fun, and memorable day. Our podcast helps engaged couples navigate wedding planning complexities while addressing family expectations. We'll guide you through the journey of creating the perfect wedding day without unnecessary stress. Get concise tips on budgeting, wedding party management, ceremony, reception planning, and more. Perfect for anyone planning a wedding, all in 30 minutes or less. Trust us, you don't want to miss this one.
Welcome to Stress-Free Wedding Planning, the podcast that will transform your wedding planning journey from chaotic to enchanting. Sal and Sam bring over 80 years of combined wedding expertise and exclusive insider information to the table. If you're recently engaged, feeling the pressure of wedding planning, struggling with family expectations, but still dreaming of a joy-filled wedding, you've come to the right place. Get ready to unveil the best-kept wedding secrets, discover practical tips and strategies, and learn life-changing lessons for a stress-free wedding. Your unforgettable wedding day awaits. We're here to take you on a transformative journey of love, laughter, and memories. So don't miss out on the podcast that just might change your life. This is the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast with Sal and Sam.
Learn more about our experience and journey to help you with a stress-free wedding planning in the trailer or pilot of this podcast.
In today's edition, 6 creative ways to celebrate your marriage without changing your last name is brought to you in part by Clear Vision Productions and the Wedding Styles of CT wedding shows. That's weddingstylesofct.com. But first, if you have a question or concern, go now to Facebook and join us on the Stress-Free Wedding Planning community and ask away. You can also join us on our YouTube channel. Just search for Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast. Subscribe and get it first.
We're always looking for interesting topics that rarely get covered or questions asked on our stress-free wedding planning community on Facebook. Here's one such topic. A soon-to-be bride wrote, "I'm looking for how you are having your DJ introduce you for your reception if you're not changing your last name. I'd love to have the phrase Mr. and Mrs., but I can't figure out a way without drawing attention to the lack of the name change." So one way to do this is when you actually have the introductions, you use your partner's last name just for the introductions, just so, it doesn't bring any light that there's a name change if you're going to use the Mr. and Mrs. Other ways to get around it, I've had couples who've just reintroduced them by their first names. But if Mr. and Mrs. is important to you, I'd say Mr. and Mrs., his name, your name as the bride, and his last name. This way, no one talks about it. Unfortunately, later on, that might bring something up when people realize you didn't change your name and they kind of felt like they were fooled type of thing. But you just don't want that pressure on the day of the wedding, people talking about it.
Exactly. Now, these approaches will allow you to celebrate your union without doing that name change. And it helps you focus on your love and your partnership. Remember, you can use these introductions at the end of the ceremony, like Sal mentioned, or for your introductions at the reception. So some of these examples will use Mr. and Mrs., and some of them won't. You have to kind of decide how you want to kind of put it together. So the first one of our 6 that we want to kind of explain to you is specifically at the ceremony, you're going to skip the traditional Mr. and Mrs. announcement. Instead, have the officiant introduce you as the happy couple, or simply use your first names. For example, I now present you Tom and Linda, or just use the couple's names, Tom and Linda. Or introducing as a married couple for the first time, Tom and Linda. So you see how those different examples keep the focus on your partnership as opposed to your last name.
Now, moving along to number 2, you could have him say Mr. and Mrs., then your first names. That's the way to still use Mr. and Mrs. without using last names and not drawing attention to the fact that you are not changing yours. For example, the new Mr. and Mrs. Tom and Linda. Now, I'm going to tell you something. As a wedding officiant, if I introduced it that way, there's always those negative Nellies out there, and people yell out, you didn't say the last name. And that can become a problem. Now you're drawing attention to things like, why didn't you say the last name? And I'm pretty sure at that point, you don't want your wedding officiant saying, well, she's not taking his last name. That's why we skipped it. So that might be something that might bring up some red flags for people. So you may want to consider not doing that one.
Great point. That's why we do this, Sal, is we want to give you the good and bad of each situation. And that's well pointed out. On to the next creative way, number 3, and that is the Mr. and Mrs. So you want to do Mr. and Mrs. with his or her last name. It can be Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So as you see there, all you're doing is using the last name of one of you. In those rare situations where the groom is taking the bride's last name, you might draw some questions to it. And I have done a wedding where that has happened. But typically, if it's a boy-girl situation, the girl takes the boy's last name. If it's a gay couple, then they can decide which names that they want to use as the last name for the announcement. Right. After the ceremony, after the reception, you can use whatever you want to do. You don't have to continue using what you used for the ceremony or reception. Now, have you used something like that, sir?
Now, this is something that hasn't really come up all that often I'm sure it will. But what's easy with a same-sex marriage, you don't have to worry about the names so much as you could say if it's 2 men and here are the misters, and you can just give their first names of the 2 of them. And the same thing with if it's 2 women, here are the misses and their 2 first names. I think we're going to run into this soon because people are not taking last names a little more often nowadays. And we're going to have to figure out what feels comfortable for you and what you feel is not going to bring up questions from the family the day of the wedding, making it stressful for you.
Great points there. Great points. So we've just explained 3 ways to introduce you and your spouse if you aren't changing your last names.
Coming up next, 3 more excellent suggestions and a couple of pro tips to help you make your choice stress-free.
This is the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast with Sal and Sam, a podcast for engaged couples concerned about wedding planning and family expectations, but who want to have a stress-free, fun, and unforgettable wedding.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is brought to you by Emerge Cosmetics. Are you ready to emerge? Our line of lipsticks, lip glosses, and mascaras was created to empower and become who you truly are, strong, beautiful, and confident. Use the coupon code SF1 at emergecosmetics.com for an instant 10% off. That's coupon code SF1 at emergecosmetics.com. Emerge is the true you.
We have another Wedding Tip Wednesday for you. Be organized. Now, you don't need to buy a wedding binder, but having something to organize all your wedding plans is essential. Be organized, please.
You know, in today's technology, the computer is your friend. Your phone is your friend. You can keep special notes under the title of the wedding right in your phone, right at your fingertips. So if you ever need to reach them, you could get there. I had a bride who did something a little different recently, and she actually got an index card box and used index cards to mark every little thing she needed and kept it in order that way. And that really works beautifully. And that's another tip from Sal and Sam.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is available on the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Facebook group page every Wednesday. Join the group for free.
Are you ready to take your wedding business to the next level? Do you feel your marketing plan needs help? Then say, I do, to theclearvisionagency.com for improved online visibility and more bookings. Make your wedding business sparkle and get ready to see real results. The Clear Vision Agency can create a picture-perfect online presence for your wedding business with our SEO, social media management, content, and digital advertising programs. Theclearvisionagency.com. Call us today to claim your free digital audit, and let's see how your business stacks up against the competition. Go to theclearvisionagency.com.
And now back to the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast.
Welcome back to our discussion about 6 creative ways to celebrate your marriage without changing your last name. Hi, I'm Sam from Atmosphere Productions, wedding entertainment with expert knowledge and the difference in quality. Visit us at atmosphere-productions.com.
Hi, I'm Sal from After Hours Events New England, the leader in making your wedding stress-free. Visit us at afterhoursevents.com. We've already discussed 3 ways to introduce you and your spouse if you aren't changing your last name. Remember, you can use these introductions at the end of the ceremony or your introductions into the reception. Let's continue with more suggestions and pro tips to help you make your decision. First name and first name. So just as simple as if you're Tom and Linda, and here I'd like to introduce our new couple, Tom and Linda, or introducing the couple who love adventure, Tom and Linda. So just adding a little spice to it, that's something that works for you. Another one is personalized introductions, saying something like, now I'd like to introduce our newlyweds. And you could go a little further and say the newlyweds, Tom and Linda. So there's definitely various ways you could handle that. Number 6 is a basic announcement. Give it up for the new Mr. and Mrs. Nice and simple, nice and clean, no worries about anything. But now I'm going to give you another pro tip, though, something that you don't have to do any of this. What's becoming more common as of late is couples getting to the point of the kiss of the ceremony and not being introduced at all. The music comes on for the recessional right away, and they walk right back up that aisle. So that's another simple way of kind of deflecting that whole last name thing.
That's a great suggestion. I know at the reception, we no longer mention the last name of the people in the wedding party if you're having a wedding party. This is kind of the same take on that, but at the ceremony. Great, great pro tip. Now, another pro tip that kind of follows along with that is when we're doing the introduction at the reception is refraining from saying bride and groom. And even we can go even further. If you have a DJ or an MC or a band, don't say ladies and gentlemen. Now, Sal, please, I know you agree with me on this one. The use of the word bride and groom and ladies and gentlemen should be banned from all wedding receptions.
Oh, you couldn't get me to agree more. We know your names. We should be saying your names. Plus, ladies and gentlemen is not appropriate for an event like this. If anything, it would be family and friends. But yeah, you got to get away from this wording, this generic wording, and make it more personalized towards the couple.
And if you have a DJ, and obviously we're DJs, we know how to frame all of these things that you want to do in a proper sentence. Some of the things we mentioned before are not really proper sentences. For example, I would do an introduction, please stand and welcome with me our newlyweds for the first time. It's my pleasure to introduce Tom and Linda. That's just one of my personal takes on it. So you see how you're all able to encompass all the things that have to do with a wedding in that. If you have a good DJ, they can frame the proper sentences for all of these examples that we've given to you.
You know, and because we're typically at the ceremony nowadays, because the ceremony is normally on location quite often, we get to hear how the announcement was made during the ceremony. So the thing we have to worry about is that the officiants say, and now for the first time, because if they say for the first time, well, you're no longer doing it for the first time. The DJ is actually doing it for the second time. So you may want to stay away from that lingo.
Yeah. And that's why I say in mine, for the first time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you. So no matter what happened before, I'm focusing on me.
You're covered.
Right. But many DJs are not going to know to do that. A lot of inexperienced DJs are not going to frame the sentences correctly. And also, you have to figure out as the couple what vibe you want. Now, if it's very formal, yes, stick to formalness. If you want it kind of laid back and hip, and you want the DJ to kind of sell it in a different way or make it comical, then that sentence is going to be very much different. And that's how you work with your DJ for the different introductions. On my planning forms, I give my clients 4 or 5 different examples of just basic introductions, and they can go from there. Many people just want the basic, but if you don't, you have got to go with the vibe that you want. I have started doing now for the introduction into the reception is something called the love story introduction. Now, Sal does this beautifully, so I'm going to let him explain how he does his love story introduction.
So love story can happen in 2 places. One, the ceremony, where you may talk about how the couple met or how the journey went to get engaged, which could be such a romantic trip for your guests because they don't know that information. Typically, they don't know everything about it. And that can make it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting at your ceremony, without a doubt. I've had some great stories, and it really added to the moment. So I always suggest do a love story. Let people know how you met. How did that first date go? How did you lead to the engagement? And sometimes you can use some of that in your introduction when you're introducing the couple. Have fun with it. Be creative. Don't let it stress you out, though.
So there you have it. We just provided you insider tips, 6 creative ways to celebrate your marriage without changing your last name. And we included a few pro tips in there as well.
Now, as you spend the next week planning your wedding, if you want me, Sam, or our community of stress-free engaged couples and wedding experts to answer any wedding-related questions, join us over in the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Facebook group.
Once you're in, go ahead and share your concerns and worries, and we'll let you know if you're on the right track or if there's something we need to work on. The link to join us is in the show notes of this edition. Or go to Facebook and search for the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Community.
A new edition is released every Wednesday. Subscribe and get it first. Remember to do something nice for someone today. And if you can't, do something nice for yourself. We'll catch you then. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to this edition. If you've enjoyed what you've just heard, leave a review and share it with a friend or someone who would benefit from this information. Until next time, it's TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
The Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast is produced and copyrighted by Atmosphere Productions in association with After Hours Events of New England.
Sponsored in part by Clear Vision Productions and the Wedding Styles of Connecticut Wedding Show Series.